what is a sexologist and how does one become one?
You should be coming to the table with your cup already full, because that just, it makes it fire. It goes
So you suggest masturbating before you have sex?
Well, why do you think that is? Why do you think there may be a couple and the man is busted masturbating that morning and the woman gets offended? What do you think has led to that type of interaction between them?
We have the toys, the lubes, the arousal oils on the nightstand and in the shower.
What? Wait, what?
Explain.
Right.
Explain.
Just to be completely honest, like if I have to go into like a CVS or something to get lube, like I feel like I'm being judged by literally every single person behind the counter.
It's also because people recognize you though.
Well,
so
sure,
like,
but I'm way beyond that.
Lube.
But when I was younger, it didn't seem like a healthy thing. It seemed like my dirty little secret.
What would you say to someone that came to you and said, I don't know, maybe I'm on the smaller side, or does size really matter?
It's not how deep you fish, it's how you wiggle the worm.
Brian with the mic drop.
Right, totally.
Oldish, the show where age-old questions meet new-age answers. With your hosts, Randy Spelling, Brian Austin Green, and Sharna Burgess.
Everybody back for another episode of Oldish. I am so excited about our guest today. You guys, you already know I am.
Well, we know it's
I'm blushing already.
We know it's going to get into some like crazy intimate stuff, and
because it will.
You're going to talk about some stuff that should not be talked.
So
about.
today, or it should be. So today we have Rebecca Alvarez on. She's a sexologist and the founder of Bloomy, which is an intimacy company that creates inclusive sex education and clean intimacy products for all bodies that helps you get in the mood. Not that we need help getting in the mood. Rebecca Alvarez, welcome to Oldish. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
So funny enough,
so much
we
for
literally just recently were talking about some stuff we should maybe get from the store.
Oh, we did.
We did.
We were discussing.
So maybe
a sex pillow.
Maybe you can.
What is a sex pillow?
Oh my!
I don't
goodness.
think he was about to divulge that information.
Are you?
Wait.
Yeah, no, I know.
What is a sex
I
pillow?
know, right? What is a sex pillow?
Okay, listen, this is something that women should know. It's a pillow that helps you get the right angles, because for some women, positions can be uncomfortable.
So does it elevate?
No, this is not a dirty thing. Take the stigma away from it.
No,
it is
it's
to
not
help
a dirty
with
thing.
pleasure.
But then we were talking about it, and I was thinking like, well, why wouldn't someone use a regular pillow? And it's like, well, who wants to that things happen on pillows when they're...
No, well, I can add a little bit more context here.
Okay,
so
please.
A sex pillow is angled in a way that actually lifts the pelvis of a woman to be at a nice angle for more pleasure. So a regular pillow, even if you have a firm pillow, it's going to be flat, right? It's going to be kind of like a rectangle. If you have a sex pillow, there's a wedge, so there's an angle so that you tilt up the pelvis in a nice way.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, so
See?
it's more like a wedge that you use like in a gym, like when you're doing crunches and things. Okay.
It's a comfy wedge.
A comfy wedge.
A comfy wedge.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Not to be.
Does Bloomy? Does your company offer comfy wedge pillows?
We don't have a comfy wedge pillow yet, but I'm happy to
Let's
recommend
collaborate.
some.
I'll
They do
design one
exist.
with you, and then we'll launch it on social media.
Right.
I'm so down.
She's all about fabrics.
I am.
She's
Yummy
all
fabric.
about like shiny
The
things, and
textures
she'll
things.
she'll
I
find the
really
right
am,
stuff.
though.
Yeah.
Rebecca, I'm so excited to have you here. I think for those of you that are listening, our first question should be, what is a sexologist and how does one become one?
The becoming is interesting, but so for me, I love sex education. Okay, that's like my jam. I don't even try to be a salesperson. I'm just an educator, and I know that now it's kind of a blended skill, right? But a sexologist is somebody who has studied human sexuality. I have a master's. You can have a master's or a PhD. And really, it's the study of sex, and you can go into different specialties. So mine is desire and arousal. And I really focused on diverse populations. I feel like women are often left out of pleasure conversations, people of color. So I wanted to make sure that I brought a really inclusive lens to this and made it not a stigma, not something you should be embarrassed to talk about.
Oh, here we go. I feel it. I feel it.
You feel what?
I just know that we're going to start getting into some real stuff. Like, I just know
He's
it.
always worried what I'm going to start
I
sharing.
know,
'Cause
so
like,
I'm not worried. But so the
It's
first
just
thing
the four of us.
the
I
first thing
forget
that
that
was
everyone's
running through my head, and I asked this before, is so how do you how do you study for to get a degree in this? Like how? Because my brain goes
Pleasure
crazy.
and arousal.
Right.
pleasure and arousal. How do you study
Yeah.
pleasure and arousal?
Yeah. I like.
Okay, I feel like my program was so fun, but let me tell you high level and then I'll tell you about mine. So if you're studying sex education, right? So if you have like a bachelor's in sex education, you're a sex educator. If you want to go further, you can go sort of a psychology route where you do a lot of one-on-ones, or you can go the research route where you study like big trends. And so I went the research route. I do a lot of I used to do a lot of coaching, but
Wait, but what is that? Okay, but what does that mean, coaching? It like
is sex
it like
coaching?
eyes wide shut,
Oh.
like you're like there's stuff happening
It
and you're going,
is-
let's talk about this?
Okay, so therapy.
Right?
In therapy, it's one-on-one and you have somebody who's helping you navigate specific challenges, right?
Sure.
It's like mental health related. There are sex therapists which will help you with specific like sexual health topics that you're going through. But if you're working with a sexologist, you're also working on the forward goals. You're working on like the big picture. You're working on a lot of the foundations that so many of us do not have. So it's sort of like somebody that can guide you from like 1 to 100 because everyone is at a different stage. And yes, one-on-one coaching for sex coaching is so helpful if you can do it. Whether you're exploring something new, you need a fresh outlook on something, you are trying to understand like your own body and your own pleasure goals. Like there's so many topics.
So Rebecca, talk us through a couple of examples, like maybe one with a couple and then one
As a
one-on-one.
single, Yeah.
Okay. So the most common intimacy struggle, and this is both singles and couples, is going to be related to libido. And so there could often be couples that would come to me and have discrepant libidos. One person has a higher, one person has a lower. That is very normal, very common. But I think sometimes people just want to understand, how do we navigate this? If one person wants to have more sex than the other person, how do you find the happy middle ground? Do you find the middle ground? And I'll give you the shortcut of this best practice. The person that has the lowest libido, the person that wants to have sex the least, that is the frequency you start at. You don't ever want to push them to feel uncomfortable. You work from that and you work your way up. And then for singles, it would usually be, okay, there's actually a few topics when I was working with singles. Women that are not comfortable masturbating yet and want to understand like where this hesitation is coming from. We unpack so much stuff. And then I start giving them tools. Okay, so today I want you to just do scalp massages, body massages. Like we don't even start with sex usually. And then work your way up. And then the other thing is usually related to libido, whether that's because you're stressed, tired, have kids, and are so worn out from the routine, or you're going through hormonal changes, surgery or menopause. Like a lot of different triggers can happen that make you pay attention to your libido.
So libido sounds like one of the biggest ones is would you say that is the appetite
That is the
for
biggest.
sex,
I-
sexual
It
pleasure?
is, I think, on average, the majority of people want to be having more sex than what they're having. And so that discrepancy is normal to have. But when you are not having sex at a rate that is making you feel fulfilled or happy at all, for whatever those reasons are, then that's where having a coach or having some sex education could be really helpful to like guide you through how to get there.
Have you noticed, and I'm just asking this out of curiosity, how have you noticed that a man who would, I think, assume that their libido was higher than a woman's, that they're completely wrong, that women's libidos tend to be truthfully higher than men's do, and men just don't know it?
It is such a good point, and you are spot on. So I think what happens, one exercise that I used to do is, especially between heterosexual couples, ask them each to write down how many times a week or a month they want to be having sex, and how many times a week or a month they think their partner wants to be having sex. And what was like, I'll say 95% of the time, what would happen is couples would be surprised to see how close their numbers were. And so there's always this assumption that your partner wants to have way more sex than you or way less sex than you. And it's actually not that far. Most of the time, it's just because we get in our heads and we start overthinking it, or, you know, we get into a bad rut where we're not intimate, we don't have time for each other, we're not going on date nights, and you start to just normalize, you know, not having intimacy, but you're getting cranky, or you're getting, you know, you just feel like your partner's not loving on you. It's like,
So for me, like, I
very
know I
easily
would feel
fixed.
self-conscious, like, oh my God, like I can feel like my libido, like I'm ready to go again. And then I was like, oh, she's going to think that I'm a mess. Like, I can't possibly like try and be intimate with her again right now.
Because you think she'd assume would
Right.
assume that it's too much.
Right, that it's too much. And
So
then now
interesting.
what I'm slowly learning is that is not the case.
And what are we
at
talking
all.
like?
And it's fantastic.
Minutes,
I don't.
hours?
We need to get into
Sometimes
specifics,
either,
Randy.
You know,
Sometimes
minutes, sometimes
we're
hours.
doing this for the greater good
Randy,
of the
no,
audience
we're
who's
doing
listening.
this for your
No,
greater good
no.
right now. I can feel it. I can feel the judgment coming from you.
No judgment
Oh,
in this. There's no judgment in it. But what I'm curious about is this thing that you are discussing of almost like a shame or a thought of, oh my gosh, she's
Right.
gonna think that this
So
is too much.
I talked about this before when we were doing an episode last season, and
Yeah.
we were talking about healthy sex, and I was saying, like, I can.
You have a high sex drive.
Yeah, it can be the most ridiculous things where all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, okay, I'm ready to go. Like,
This
I
is
can,
where the peeling
I can
the
be
orange.
peeling an orange, right? And I just gave that as an example. That's not actually a thing where like I keep oranges in my kitchen because that is like a form of arousal for me, Randy.
yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
Right. But so
It can
I
actually
always
make a lot of
assu-
sense, like the peeling and like
Absolutely.
the aroma,
And
it's
the
like
juiciness.
fresh.
I
Yeah,
like what you're doing
totally.
here.
Yeah.
I like what you're.
It makes total sense.
So, but then I thought, like, okay, something's wrong with me because I am so ready to go constantly. And then recently I've been finding out that it's not just me. And I didn't know that. I really felt like I thought you were going to go, oh my God, what is wrong with this guy?
Right.
Like, this is, we already
After
had
how
sex.
many years
Like,
have you
what-
been together? And you're just
Well,
now?
but it's not like recently as in this week, but
Oh.
honestly, since about a year ago when we started. So, Rebecca, we had a somatic sexologist come on the show about a year
Jaya.
ago, Miss Jaya.
Miss
And it was
Jaya.
our first introduction to these conversations. And it was fascinating and wonderful. That's why I'm so excited to have you here because we've always had a healthy sex life, but it opened up so many more conversations for us. And our communication now about intimacy, what we want, when we want it, like how you want it, like it's just opened it up completely and taken shame
How
away.
you want it.
And taken,
Okay.
taken shame away from the conversation.
Yeah.
And I think shame is a really great subject to get into around sex because we've all somehow grown up with shame, whether it's from religious beliefs or, touching yourself is wrong. All these things that just add another layer and layer of shame where we don't ask and take notice of our own pleasure and go after it in a sense. So I feel like that's an amazing
100%.
conversation to have.
It's almost like when you have a conversation with somebody that's just focused on like, let's talk about your pleasure or where you're at and what are you struggling with, whether that's, a friend, a sexologist, it doesn't really matter. It's sort of an unlock moment. It normalizes it and it makes you feel very validated and a little excited to go do something about it. Or it just leaves these little sticky notes in our mind like, I actually never thought about that. And then when it gets closer to date night, time together, whatever it is, those ideas are already floating around in your mind and it makes you feel more at ease. So this is what I love about my job. Like just one conversation can impact people in ways that I'm not even understanding, but these are safe spaces that we create as sex experts, right? To meet you where you're at and let's talk about whatever's interesting to you because it is interesting. And I think with the shame part, I can't tell you how many women especially I have talked to who bring like layers and layers of stigma and shame that they might not even realize they're carrying. It can be generational, it can be religion based, it can be like gender stereotype based. It's messages we get growing up, right? Women of color tend to be hypersexualized, so a lot of women of color are actually turned off to being like sexualized in general because of it. Like there's so many things that happen, and porn is actually this. We could talk about just a whole session on it, but porn is not real sex 90% of the time, and so if that's sex education for most young adults and that's how they think sex goes, we're already starting off on the wrong foot, right? It's like, no, that's performative.
Can you explain that for people? Because I know people are probably like, okay, yeah, I get that conceptually, but what do you mean porn is not real sex?
Most porn is not real sex. There's actually a friend of mine, I love her, Cindy Gallup. She has a company called Make Love Not Porn. I'm sure she would be amazing for you all to do a deep dive with too. Her whole concept is if we can show the world what real sex looks like, we're going to address so many issues we have right now with our communities, including sexual abuse. And that's kind of a big statement, but I feel like she's right, because what happens is, let's say you are a teen and your first sexual education experiences are your class, which is so, don't get me started. I had abstinence only education, by the way.
Wow.
Did you?
Which you can come back to, but it was just, we had an abstinence only contract. It was a whole thing where I was like, this is not comprehensive. But when you're being exposed to a sex ed class and it's all about anatomy and don't get pregnant and STIs, and there's a lot of fear, and it's not pleasure forward. It's not talking about things that you're genuinely interested in. Now, I'm not saying that happens all the time, because some sex educators, they'll have a ask me anything moment, right, in their classes. I loved those. I think it was so helpful, because then you get the real topics going, the ones that people really are interested in at that age. But when you take that and then you put porn on top of that, where you're seeing that usually it's heterosexual, usually it's men being more aggressive, women making certain noises, people coming at the exact same time, like all these things where that's not how it usually goes. And yes, is it possible to come at the same time, or that the woman will be 100% pleased? Yes, it's possible. But the way that it's usually portrayed in those porn narratives, it's just for performance. It's like an engaging movie.
Yeah, it's not real, and it's unfortunately where so many kids get their sex education. Women see, oh, I'm supposed to look like that and act like that, and young men see, oh, this is what works, so I'm going to do this. This is what they like.
Right.
And there ends up being such a disconnect in intimacy, and therefore it does. Like, I remember seeing porn at a young age and thinking that's what it was supposed to be. Like, that was hot, to be like a porn star.
That's how I learned.
You know?
That's
Yeah.
the first thing I learned. And truthfully, when I saw my first porn film, I was a little bit disturbed. And it was old. It was like a 80s.
Like a Debbie Does
porn.
Dallas or something.
Yeah, but I was
Right.
really, I was picking up on the whole thing, and it just seemed weird. But that was how me and my friends were also educated.
Right.
Is like, that's what you do. So what is, I know there's such a gamut and this is subjective, but like, what is healthy sex? What is, if porn isn't that, what is?
Oh my gosh. I think that it's hard to give an answer here, because the beauty of human sexuality and sex is that it is so fluid, and you adapt it to yourself, like your needs, your interests, your desires, right? But at the end of the day, whoever is involved, let's say it's two people, they should enter that experience feeling good and leave that experience feeling good. And so whatever you're bringing into that experience, let's say it's a couple and they go on date night and they come home. You've now had this interaction with each other where you get to emotionally connect, talking is intimate, hugs are intimate. You've had these build-up moments, and now when you come to the physical sex intimacy side, you feel full. Let's say you both masturbated earlier in that day too, because that's another thing I recommend. Don't assume your partner is going to fulfill all your needs. You should be coming to the table with your cup already full, because that just, it makes it fire. It goes to the next level.
So you suggest
Right.
masturbating before you have sex?
Not like directly
Not
before.
immediately before.
Right,
Yeah,
but
right.
before, okay. All
So
right.
like
How
the
come?
morning
I
of.
think
How come?
if you are masturbating on an ongoing, consistent basis. Now, I'm not saying it has to be every day, but every day is fine. Every other day, whatever feels good for you. You are not only like improving your health, your sexual wellness, because of blood flow and just getting that like constant feel good cocktail of hormones that you get when you have an orgasm, which is good for your mood. It slightly reduces depression and all these like benefits that are just constantly floating in your body. All those things you now bring to intimacy with a partner, and you feel really confident. You know what you like. You know how you like to orgasm. Hopefully your sexual communication is also getting stronger throughout your relationship, right? Especially if you have these unlock moment conversations. And then when you have sex, you already feel really good and you take it to the next level. It's a sexual energy concept.
I love this perspective so much because I think so many people, I mean, we've had these discussions not about in our relationship, but in past ones where as someone may have been criticized for masturbation, saying, why are you doing that? It should be me. And taking that as a negative experience and moment because it wasn't happening together.
Right.
And it was someone going off to do it on their own. And
Right.
so
What's
that makes
wrong?
the other
What's
person,
wrong with you?
me?
Why-
Or
yeah.
why, yeah.
Yeah.
So I love this perspective because, well, why do you think that is? Why do you think there may be a couple and the man is busted masturbating that morning and the woman gets offended? What do you think has led to that type of interaction between them? Because I think that's very common.
I think it's common. It's very, very common. And if you feel badly or you feel slightly jealous, that's also a normal feeling to have. But where it's rooted, where it's coming from, is the idea that our partner has to be our everything. And I think this is where a lot of us kind of trip up when it comes to like our sexual compatibility and our sexual relationship with somebody. If you enjoy solo pleasure and then can bring some of those concepts, likes, desires, dislikes, to your partner, communicate those, it all helps you feel good during sex with your partner. And I think the idea is that if my partner isn't fulfilling me 100% of the time with everything, and I catch them, right? I catch them masturbating, I'm not good enough. That's where that like root is coming from, but that's not how it works. When you're talking about sexual wellness, you should be really comfortable in your own skin and really focus on like your own pleasure. This is where like I love recommending products. I think that people should be having kind of like their own nightstand collection and feeling comfortable leaving it out and reaching for it. I remember just even like,
Wait, we have kids, so we shouldn't leave it out, right?
We can't leave,
that's
we can't leave things out.
well, I have kids and I leave it out. But here's what
Okay.
we do.
Wait, stop,
Wait,
stop.
no, she
hold
just
on.
locks the door.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
you lock
Yeah,
the
yeah,
door
you
then? Like, do you have a
No, we leave it out.
padlock
We
on the
leave-
door? Like how?
We have the toys, the lubes, the arousal oils on the nightstand and in the shower.
What? Wait, what?
Explain.
Wellness products.
Right.
Explain, please.
Explain,
Yes.
I know
elaborate,
this is
yeah.
becoming. I'm gonna start showing like pictures of what I mean, because the way that this is one of the reasons why I started my company. Instead of continuing to recommend other brands and sometimes have this is a great lube but, or this is a great toy, however, like I just wanted to create the easy to use line that was going to be really wellness. It has like a wellness look to it. You might not even know what they are. It just looks like a beauty product or a lotion. And so I've sort of like brought down that stigma a little bit with the products at Bloomy. And the whole point is create a collection of tools that you're going to reach for that are going to enhance your intimate life anytime. And it's for you and your partner. My nightstand has a few lubes, a couple arousal oils, and a massager. And I just leave it out. And I'm not embarrassed because obviously like this is my space, but I can understand why it's challenging for people to have everything out. So I say start with 1 or 2 products. Have an arousal oil, which is ours is beautiful. It's this little glass bottle. Start with that. And then watch how many more times you're going to start using it because it's
there.
Insight.
It's
you
a
think about
prompt.
it, right?
And okay, so when there's
shower.
kids, right? Because you
Dude,
said
I love
you
the
have
look on your
kids.
face right now.
I have so many thoughts. I have so many thoughts going through my mind. Number one being I've researched you and your products, so I was looking at. I really appreciate the care and consideration and the sort of the ethos that you have going into your products because it's sort of it's muted. It's mad. It's not this like shiny, like here I am. Here's
Right.
this crazy thing.
Right, with big red lips on it. And
No,
things.
it's
Right,
almost
yeah.
like comfort. Yeah,
Yeah,
There's
no,
there's
it's
a
true.
comfort
Yeah.
and an ease
Not
and like a
glittery and-
soothing
yeah,
to it.
right.
So you almost it's like wellness products. That's what it really feels like. Is like a beautiful, nice spa wellness product
I love that.
across the board for your products. So I appreciate that about Bloomy. But also, I'm curious about when you have kids going in, and of course they're going to be curious. What?
We have a 2-year-old
or
that
guests
will
that wanna
literally
see your
like
bedroom?
grab a bottle of lube and like put it all over his lips, thinking that it's it's like
true.
lip gloss.
Oh, mommy phone.
Oh yeah,
Mama
totally.
phone.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
I
Yeah.
can-
Oh, it's
I
yeah.
see it all now. It's
Well, you would be very happy because all of Bloomy products are incredibly non-toxic,
Non-toxic.
environmentally
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
safe,
Fantastic.
clean.
much less
great.
toxic than a
Clean,
phone.
right.
Gosh, I love
Right,
it.
he might be a
love
little
the
more
research.
slippery than normal, but
Oh my god.
his lips will be really hydrated.
Oh my god. Don't. I can't.
Very hydrated, very slippery. So I think
Look at Sharna's face.
Dying. Sorry. I'm dying. Just the thought. The visuals are terrible.
You're like, I'll pick you up, and he's just like
Okay.
slipping out of your arms.
We've gotten
yeah.
sidetracked.
Yeah,
Let's
okay.
get back on track.
Okay, sorry.
no, I love it. Let's talk about kids, but I appreciate the fact that like you took a look at what it looks like because here's the thing. I think that I'm fighting 2 different systems right now. There's the world of let's normalize it and kind of F it. Who cares what these products look like? We should just be proud to be buying them. I'm fighting that with also people are not really open to buying these products in person as they are online. They are still hesitant. There's still a lot of stigma. And so we can't just be full on.
Oh,
right?
let me,
I
like,
wanted this
I
to
mean,
feel
like,
comfortable.
agree.
Just to be completely honest, like if I have to go into like a CVS or something to get lube, like I feel like I'm being judged by literally every single person behind the counter.
It's also because people
as I'm
recognize you though.
Well,
so they're
sure,
like,
but
Brian
I'm
Austin
way
Green's
beyond
buying
that.
Lube. You know
I'm
what
way
I
beyond
mean?
that. Yeah. I'm like to me, I would assume that anybody walking up to the counter with like, a few different lubes and some things to try is being judged like, oh my God, this guy's really buying a lot of stuff. Hey, have a good weekend. Like
Is
That's
that
so interesting. That's shame again, right?
Yeah,
It's shame.
there's
Shame
so
level
much
around it again.
shame in society around this. So continue what you were saying about the 2
please.
battles that you were fighting.
Yes.
Well, it's that idea, right? That what you're talking about is the shame that it's just in us, and it's because of all of the years of the messages of sex is like a hush hush thing, and it's private, but it's also something we don't really talk about. It's just we just need more conversation. And honestly, you buying products at CVS, I love it. That's progressive of you, and that just shows that you are open-minded.
wait, no, I'm not saying
feel
that
like-
I do it easily or that I do it often.
but you're doing it.
Out of necessity. It's like, what else am I going to do? I don't have anybody to send there in my place to get stuff. So it's,
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah,
get it.
it's me.
And you know what I actually love? So Bloomy just launched in CVS. We're testing it in 1,000 stores. I actually tried ordering the product myself when we launched, and I got it in an hour. I didn't even know CVS delivered.
Oh yeah.
I
there's
didn't
things like
either.
I didn't
Instacart-
either.
Oh my God,
Instacart
I'm on
does that.
CVS as soon as we're out of here because I've got some stuff
Yeah,
to
they deliver. I
have
was
them
like,
deliver
oh my gosh,
within
the
an hour.
CVS order just arrived. So that's one thing I'm loving about them. But to go back to kids, so here's what I would want couples to think about if they have small children. You are their role model of love, right? You are their role model of physical affection. And so they're bound to walk in on you or ask you a question you're not ready for or all of the things. And it's because we don't talk about these things often enough, you will probably feel a little bit uncomfortable, but that is normal. And if you can just in that moment address it, it's not a big deal to them. It's just like, oh,
Right.
okay, you
No.
would be so surprised.
Oh my
It's a bigger deal for
God.
us.
That
I
Yeah,
really,
it's
I
true.
really like this angle though. Hear me out. Hear me
no,
out.
I'm hearing. Go.
So many of my friends have talked over the years. I've heard this from clients, like a really disturbing moment when they have walked in on their parents somehow. And I wonder, why is that actually so disturbing? If it was more normalized in a conversation, you might have a better idea of how to language this. But this is part of our love for each other, and it is more.
But what do you do as parents? Like you throw up a peace sign and you ask, like, can you make me a coffee? Or like,
Close
can
the
you get me
door,
water
like,
because I'm thirsty right
What
now?
is
No,
the, okay,
I'm not
so
done with what I'm
is the
doing, like,
correct-
how-
Yeah, what is the correct
what's the
reaction
approach?
or response when a
Yeah.
kid walks in on you?
So across the board, what you want to do is you just want to say, hey, we're having private time together. So you don't want to invite them into these moments, but you want to basically just let them know this is a privacy thing. And then I'll take the example for you all. You have a 2-year-old, they won't understand.
Oh, the
what it
12,
is.
10, and 8 will, though.
The 12, 10,
Yeah,
and
they
8, yeah,
will.
the 12, 10, and 8 absolutely will.
So the little ones, you want them to like have moments of you two being affectionate in front of each other to really model what a healthy relationship is like. And part of that from the very beginning can be having your own private time, your own pleasure products that you don't walk through what they are and how to use it. But those are just, those are for mommy and daddy. Like, or they accidentally grab your vibrator. I have so many stories of my kids. Okay. Grab your vibrator. Hey, that's mommy's massager. I need you to put it down. That's for me. So it's like just trying you to, I guess, let go a little bit.
Just wait
of
till
some
they're
of the
16
shame
and they're
because-
like, massager.
Right.
Hey, mum, massager. Sure.
Oh.
Thanks for that.
the controversy of should you give your teen a toy is something that I go back and forth about, because if you want your kids to value pleasure-
Wait.
No, I wanna hear this,
Yes,
yeah.
no, I do also, but I just want to clarify this. We're talking about giving your teen a toy.
Yeah.
A pleasure
it's
toy.
something to consider. It's something to consider, and they're gonna feel awkward AF getting it from you. So
Yeah.
if you're open to your like an uncle or an aunt that they think is really cool, whatever, like having many conversations with them and maybe giving them a product, I would highly consider it. And here's why. I know it feels like way
Inappropriate.
beyond what you're comfortable with, but kids are making their own toys and they are not safe, and it is happening across the board.
Really?
Oh, I did-
Wait,
so
what do you
making
mean
their
they're
own
making their own
toys?
toys? Like inmates make shanks in prison? Like how?
They are
What
making
a,
their
what
own
a correlation
toys. Like, for
there, by the
example,
way. Yeah.
boys are so like cis boys, right? They have a penis. They are discovering the pleasure of masturbating pretty early. Usually it's like before 10. And by the time they're preteens and teens, they feel so embarrassed to go buy these things that they're making their own out of like plastic bottles with liner around it, or anything they can think of with suction. I've seen vacuum cleaner toys. Like, so they're trying to know about pleasure, but they already know that there's so much shame. They can feel it even though they can't vocalize it. So I think that if there was a way, and I'm still trying to figure this out, but if there was a way to have products and have teens know that that was an option to them and that their parents weren't going to like ask them questions.
Maybe if it's
or
like a
make big
tooth
deal
fairy
out of it,
approach,
I think
like
they would use them.
like the toys were just found under a pillow or something, and they were like, "Oh my god, I woke up and there's like maybe that's."
So here's why I'm for this, right? And I still don't know how to approach this.
My heart
as a
right now is
parent. I know.
racing.
And I feel like
Take a deep
what you're
breath.
saying is incredible, and you're probably a couple decades early, but I think we'll get there eventually, is this shame and stigma that we create around sex and our kids. I grew up with it. I didn't know what my own pleasure was. I had sex with my first boyfriend because I thought it would keep him because he was sleeping with other women. Already, bam, it's about them, not me. And the exposure to porn and the shame around it. I didn't even know what an orgasm was in the beginning of having sex. I had no idea
A
until
lot of us didn't.
and then even then when it finally happened, it was like, oh, was that okay? And then not knowing how to get it there or ask for it. It was such a long journey in being able to enjoy intercourse. Sometimes it would hurt and I wouldn't even say anything because it had nothing to do with my own pleasure, but everything to do with them and just the performance that I put on, right? This is what we grow up thinking as men and women, or male, female, with intercourse. And so I'm actually for this. I don't know how you introduce it. I don't know how you completely like give the older generations
I think if a
heart
kid
attacks.
loses a tooth and then instead of money, it's a toy underneath the pillow,
So hear me out.
that's an easy introduction.
Imagine
and,
a world where kids are not feeling shameful and not repressed,
right?
Then and they're exploring things, and so therefore they're not feeling like it just explodes out of them on a person where they inappropriately do it or touch someone or suppress themselves completely and have no idea of their own pleasure. Like, you create little monsters because you're not
100%.
allowing them to explore. I'm having like light bulb moments here. I get it. I don't know how you're going to implement it. I think you're up against a few
still-
Tooth fairy,
roadblocks.
tooth fairy. Just
But
saying.
I'm in full
I'm just
support.
pitching
Tooth
that.
fairy. I mean,
I totally get the benefit of this, and I think it's amazing.
The sexual fairy, like you come up with something like
sexual
like Elf
fairy.
on a Shelf, but it's like,
Can you dress
it's
like
something.
that? Can you come
I'm
in
telling
with the
you,
costume?
if you make this happen, then let's get into business on this together because I'm
There's
down.
something there. There's something there for sure.
there's something there. I don't have the answer,
Yeah.
but I do see the issues, and I feel like there's alternatives. I just don't. We're making progress, right? We're talking a little bit more about sex. People are buying these products more frequently. The Google breakout search terms in sexual wellness are like through the roof right now. COVID accelerated a lot of the trends that I thought were going to take longer, and I think it's because people were stuck at home and so stressed and wanted to connect, and we're just like,
Well, and
frustrated
they
with
weren't
their
feeling the
partners.
same the same shame and pressure because they weren't in front of people. They were it's like that
was just
it's
their
like that
bubble.
keyboard warrior thing. Like
Yeah.
everybody's in their own home, so it's like, oh shit, I might as well be trying some things because I'm not like responsible for it. Nobody's seeing me do it. I'm not having to talk about it.
Yeah. My hope.
And here's the thing. Go ahead.
You go on.
Oh, I was going to say the thing about teens and sex, I think that makes us all uncomfortable is why are we going to promote, here, go have sex? But what I tell, especially parents, is your kids are probably already having sex. If they are teens, they're probably already exploring. And what a beautiful thing for them to be able to lean on you and know that you're going to answer their questions and you're not going to be a source of shame for them. And it's not promoting sex between teens. It's more just like, I am a resource for you because you're probably already thinking or doing these things. Making sure girls are on birth control and making sure that you're having the sex talk multiple times over multiple years, not just one awkward talk that's going to reinforce these patterns. So yeah, I don't have the answer for teens. I think adults
How old are your kids?
still just need a lot more work. I have a 16-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Ooh, okay, so you're in it.
You're in it.
Yeah. So you are looking for solutions because you're in the middle of it right now. Okay.
Yeah, and I saw it coming. I've seen the issues with, abstinence only education leads to more pregnancies and STIs. Like, the data are there. It's obvious. So now it's like, how do we make it where it's more comfortable across the board for adults? And I think once I make more progress with Bloomy, I think my heart is going to take me to more of like the sex education side for teenagers.
I see that in you.
I see
and
that in you too.
Yeah.
Have you seen that TV show, Sex Education?
I have.
It's so
I have.
good.
I think it's good, and I feel like we just need to have more shows where kids are like, okay. I keep saying kids, but they're not kids; they're young adults.
They're young adults, right? I get it.
I think just having more
Well, they can buy guns in this
conversations-
country, so why can't they have a sex education?
Right. I mean, I think having more conversations and normalizing these conversations where, at times it's embarrassing for us or we're blushing, but it's that full circle moment where if there are enough of these conversations and it's normalized enough, maybe going into CVS and buying lubrication isn't a shameful thing.
It's always going to be shameful
Or-
for me. I just can't see.
Where
it.
does that come from for you? Can I ask that question? Like, where does the shame come from?
It becomes that judgment thing of like, oh my God, the person behind the counter is now judging me for like, wondering,
Right, that's the
what the
thought.
fuck is
That's
wrong
the
with
idea
you?
in your mind. But Sharna's saying where, like, trace it back. Where does the shame come from?
Well,
That's bad.
because I think the shame in sex from like porn, what you were saying, because porn is, it's not actually two people having sex. It is a performance. So you feel like there is, when I was younger, I felt like you're either married and so you're having sex because it is all about procreation, or you're a freak, or something is wrong with you in having sex, because you're not doing it to have kids. You're not doing it to it's
So like you're a sex
the
addict,
whole,
or
the
you're
whole
dirty.
concept of it's just it's pleasure, but it's a healthy pleasure. It never seemed like a healthy it does now, but when I was younger, it didn't seem like a healthy thing. It seemed like my dirty little secret, know?
Really?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
interesting.
For sure.
You carry some of that with you to CVS, you're saying.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think so. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's,
And I think there's so many people that feel that way. And I'm not saying it has to feel easy buying these products in front of others, but a few ideas. I mean, you can always buy them online, right? You can always buy Blue Me online even. But I also think that the more you do it, the easier it'll get. And the more you talk about it, the less you'll care. And honestly, I don't even know what people who check out think about, think about people's orders, but they see this all the time. And we did have this whole scandal at Target. So we were the first toy brand to launch at Target a couple years ago, and first Latina-led brand to launch in that aisle. It was it was very exciting, but it was kind of a scandal. Thank you. And it was really cool, but at the same time, you could see it on social. There were a lot of people what do you mean Target is allowing these toys? And it's why are you in the intimacy aisle with your family? What kind of a sick mind do you have? And what I was trying to show is I think progressive, maybe ahead of its time, but I'm trying to push this normalization a little bit, where when we launched at retail, I brought my kids, I brought my parents, my husband, my best friend, her kids, and it was like a celebration. And yes, we were, in front of the toys and the lubricants and all of it, taking pictures, celebrating that there was a brand, that was clean and accessible, made by a Latina sexologist, all of the things that you can bullet out that were on the shelf. I'm also first generation. So I know in detail the stories of what my parents and my grandma had to do to really come to this country to have that American dream. And I felt like in that moment, it wasn't just toys and lubes, because the funny thing is those are fun products. It is toys and lubes, but there's so much meaning behind it, where I'm this is a generational push. And this is me going after the American dream for people that made this effort for us to be able
such
to
a
do
massive
this as first gen.
accomplishment for sure.
So it's it's grounding for me, because it's yes, we're talking about sex and we could go from here to here with the conversation. But at the end of the day, it's also, I want to make change. And I feel I'm kind of carrying a lot of the support from other people in my community that think it's really cool to start a business, because it's also a business and it's also on that end of it. So it's layered for me. And this is why I get really excited about it, because I'm I feel like I can do this and have this impact. And the education side is what makes me light up. That's where I really find my joy.
Wow,
Wonderful.
I love
It's
this.
so good.
You're so inspiring.
I have a question about men. I mean, we talked some about women in pleasure and whatever. What do you see for men are their biggest hangups?
It's actually pretty similar to women's struggles, interestingly enough. I think that one of the most common things I would see is men would struggle with opening up and being more vulnerable with their emotions, and being okay, being more sensitive and communicating how they were feeling before, during, and after sex. Usually you don't communicate that much during sex. You do maybe a few words, or you move with their hands, or dirty talk. People don't have long conversations usually during intimacy. And I felt men were just, this is generalizing, right? but just struggling with the emotional intimacy side of things. And then I think for women, a lot of women really need emotional intimacy as a foundation. And so there was a little bit of a disconnect where I felt like men really did want to, but didn't even know how to talk about their feelings in a comfortable conversation. They would get hot or didn't know where to start. So I developed prompts like, here are conversation starters, or here's when you should actually talk to your partner, which I'm happy to give this tip as well. A great time to talk about sex is obviously when you're both relaxed, right? If you're out at dinner, having a good time together, you don't want distractions. Because if you're constantly being distracted by your kids, like if you're home, it breaks up the flow and it makes you feel like you have to re-engage and almost makes it embarrassing again. So I would just, anytime you don't have a distraction is a good time when it's just you two. And then there's also a concept of pillow talk, where after you have intimacy, you are extremely vulnerable. And that is a great time to have a conversation. You have endorphins, you're relaxed, you probably don't have clothes on, you're laying down with your partner. So actually talking to them about what you enjoyed and like reinforcing the things that you're liking, that is a really great time for that.
Versus criticism, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So like the things you want to change or the things you want to try, have those in the conversations when you're both like, ask each other the same question. Like, what's one thing that we haven't done that you want to try? What's one thing that I do that if I tweaked it a little bit would feel so much better? Like, it's almost like visually talking about things, you know? But after sex, it's a great time to talk about what you really enjoyed.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's important though because all the things that you're saying and the way that you're putting it in is like there's positive reinforcement. Look at what you really enjoyed, say that, and then maybe talk about something that I did enjoy that. And if it was like this, I think that would be, can we try this? So you're already starting with a base of
Exactly.
positive reinforcement versus like, oh yeah, that doesn't work for me. I've heard in couples a lot of times that just shuts people down, and then
It does.
it gives this idea of, oh, is my performance going to be good? Is it going to be bad? Do they like? And it gets people in their heads, makes it worse. So starting with positivity and connecting, and then moving it forward from there, right?
Yeah, because can you imagine if, let's say every other time in between having sex, you have a quick touch base about something, whether it's like, I saw this lube and it's, flavored. What do you think about that? And what if you built these conversations? Can you imagine like how much tweaking and trying you would have? Like you would create this full menu of things that you're going to experience with your partner, and they would be exactly how you like it. It's amazing. And I think that when I put the menu concept out there for people, they're like, oh. And I tell my husband sometimes when he does something, I'm like, can you add that to the menu, please? So it's like,
That's a great
I
way.
like
It
having
is,
Yeah, adding to a menu.
Yeah.
Gosh,
I love that.
Rebecca, thank you so much for continuing these conversations and normalizing this for your products and the work that you're doing. We really appreciate it.
Can you please next season be in here with
In
us
here
too?
with us,
Please.
yes.
yes,
In
yes,
studio.
I'm happy
Yeah.
to.
I would
I'm happy to
absolutely
do
love
that. It'll be fun.
Oh my God, we would need more episodes with you. I need more time with you. There is just so much to discuss. I love
I
it.
know.
Right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's fun. I love the questions you're having. They're very real, common things, common struggles, common questions that you're bringing the really fresh twist to it. And I love that it's three of you because it becomes a really fun group conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Incredible.
We
Yeah.
appreciate that. One question that I did have, because you were talking about the different toys and you said the one that's really small and compact. And I did think, because I think this is an age-old question amongst men, I've had clients over the years who have been very self-conscious about their size. And it is something that, I've coached them around, but it's still like it really gets in the way of them even allowing themselves to have pleasure because they're so locked up about it. What would you say to someone that came to you and said, I don't know, maybe I'm on the smaller side, or does size really matter? Because so much of what men hear, and they're bringing this to me, and I'm trying to like show them evidence that it doesn't always matter, and it depends on the person, and blah blah blah. But sometimes it doesn't matter. This is ingrained in them. What do you say to them?
Yeah, it's definitely something that a source of anxiety for some men. I think what's interesting is when you look at like the actual, I'll say like measurement data, most people are just average. And I don't know where this concept comes from. That
What is that though? Like what
so
is
so
average?
what I know a lot about is actually like averages by ethnic group. And
Good point.
And usually men are in the same range by like a quarter of an inch. So it's not like, let's say like the average is, and I could get this wrong because this was like 5 to 6 years ago, but let's say the average is like 5 inches. And this is erect. This is not like when you're not aroused, right? The variation is going to be a quarter of an inch. So we're talking a range that doesn't make a big difference, but people are very hung up on it. And yes, for some folks, they kind of have, I'll say like a thickness or a length that they think that they like, but it's really about how you're using it, to be honest.
It's not how deep you fish, it's how you wiggle the worm. That's what I always heard when I was younger. It's not how deep you fish, it's how you wiggle the worm.
I've
Brian
never
with the
heard
mic
that.
drop.
Right, totally.
Have you-
So
Yeah,
where should
I need-
people head? Because I wanna check out your
Target, right? Bloomie's in
or
Target.
or online. If
Or
you
online.
don't want to walk into a store, then
Into a Target.
yeah, then,
we take
then what
it,
do you
yeah,
do?
yeah.
So if people can find our products on the Bloomy, BLOOMI.com.
Okay.
You can also shop us at Target or CVS, and we're getting ready to launch on Amazon.
Should we get into a little after the show at
Yeah.
this point?
Thanks, Rebecca.
Yeah, thank everyone
you
for being
so
here,
much.
and
Yeah,
then
thank
we
you for
will
listening.
continue our conversation.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah, bye everyone.
Hey, if you're going through something right now, if you need additional support, then please reach out to me at randyspelling.com/help or go to my Instagram at randyspelling. Thanks.